Hey y'all, welcome to episode 3 of Long Live the ABB, conversation from the crossroads of Southern music history and culture. Episode 3 features David Goldflies. This is just a great conversation. David played bass in the Allman Brothers from 1979 to 1982. He also was Dickey's bassist from 1977 through 1983 with Betts Hall Leavell Trucks. Here's part 3 of our conversation. The Arista years, the breakup, and David's reflection on his time with the Allman Brothers Band.
Man, so I was prepared when I met Dickey. You know, if I hadn't played Bill, I would not have been prepared. But I had rocked, man, with a consummate rocker, and so I was prepared, and that made all the difference. It always makes all the difference, man. You know, you just gotta really be prepared, and that's how I approached it. Was just know my instrument, you know, learn enough about the music. I got thrown in pretty quick. I had 3 days to spin up on a bus ride out to Los Angeles. Danny would talk to me more about sound than parts, and I figured out how to play the songs, and we went for it, you know. And you know, since then I've learned a lot about the style. You're right about the bass players all being fantastic, though. They were all really good in their own way. You know, I've had to like transcribe Alan Woody's parts for some of the stuff in my band. Haven't really looked that much at O'Teal, but every time I hear him, it's just like, oh, just totally competent, just totally great, always right, you know, always right.
Yeah, I saw
Lamar
him.
did some of the quintessential stuff. Lamar's stuff was just quintessential and beautiful. The albums he played on, and Barry originated. I mean, everybody had their thing, you know. To be listed in the same list is a pretty cool thing.
There's something to give you a little props to, and I'm not blowing smoke when I say this. You have such a good attitude about your role here. I know you're still playing and doing stuff there, and you earned your spot, you know, at an era that I think gets a little too little attention because of how it petered out.
I still use what I learned, man. I've been playing a jazz gig lately with some guys, and we get a different lineup, different guys show up. And I've been playing, I'm the occasional bass player. I'm playing tomorrow night. And that intensity of like when you're doing like Cherokee or something, a Charlie Parker song, it's just like that intensity, man. It's the same as rock, man. Rock had the intensity, and bass playing, it's just intent. It doesn't stop. It's a certain intensity, and I have the ability in my brain to be intense for that length of time and play bass. Like I can lock the world out and just do that. And sometimes you get distracted, like, man, it'd be great to have a pizza. Oh, wrong, you know, you screw up. But mostly you don't, because I take that real seriously and got relatively good at it. And got better at it playing with the guy, the Dickey, you know, with the band, brothers, you know, got much better at it because they were so intense. They shared an outlook. Those 4 original players shared an outlook. You could see they shared something. And I tried to learn to experience what they shared. I couldn't directly do it, but you could tell there was a shared experience among them. And I somehow tried to feed off that. I finally realized that what was going on, because I played with them for several years. So I kind of realized what's really going on here. I remember one day I woke up and said, damn, this is a business. These are just all contracts and agreements. I was at the volunteer jam. They're thinking, oh, I figured part of this thing out, you know, because before that, it had just been like this amazing menagerie of crazy stuff happening. And on stage, those 4 guys had shared something from another time. And I got to experience whatever that was. And it was an intensity and a focus. And I was, to some degree, I've been able to take that and use that with my own bands and in my own playing. That's exactly what happened to me, man. That's probably the most refined and distilled version of it that I can give you.
Let's talk about Reach for the Sky, what you remember on From the Madness of the West, which is the one. It's a good instrumental. Unfortunately for me, it's got the synth solo in the middle of it. Butch wrote it's the only drum part that was written, composed.
Really?
And on the whole Allman Brothers. So you did. I was going to ask you that. Did you know that?
Man.
So Butch wrote that. Butch wrote that part out and has said it's the only part that he wrote out, the only drum part that they wrote out. But do you have any memories of that record, Reach for the Sky?
I have some memories, but not much about the music. It was done up in Chattanooga. I remember that.
Yep.
And it was a lonely time for me. For some reason, I was like a really lonely young guy at that point, and was just not digging where I was. I wasn't digging being isolated on this mountaintop alone. I mean, I was with the guys, with Danny and, of course, all the different guys, but It's just a lonely time. So we would go down there and play and then get off. And I was like, this sucks. There's just nothing going on, you know? I was young, kind of immature at that point for sure. But we played, and I do remember there seemed to be a lot of inebriation. Let's be diplomatic. To the point, as I recall, the studio had a tank of nitrous oxide, and it had a hose on it that was probably 300 feet long. So you could go almost anywhere in the property and take a hit of nitrous oxide. And people did. And I'm not sure that was a good thing, but it was a thing. And so eventually my girlfriend came up and we got together and everything was cool. The sessions don't really stand out to me. I don't think because it was high, it didn't stand out. We kind of went through the motions of playing the album. Didn't feel as I don't feel like, I guess looking back now, I have so little memory. I guess I wasn't as engaged or something. The engagement was off. Wasn't that the Lawler and Cobb album?
Yes. So they produced it, and then I think Mike played on this record, and then joined the band for the next one.
That's
so
right.
Yes,
Yeah.
yes. And I think it was their studio.
Mike was quite a character, man. I'm glad he lived.
I'm
glad he lived.
Glad he lived. That's funny.
I'm glad he lived. Yes, I mean that, and he would understand totally. But I think the Straight from the Heart, that was on that album, right?
Yep.
Yeah, it didn't feel like the right music for the band. I didn't feel like what we've been doing. It might have been the right music. Again, I'm not a decision maker in the band, but it was like dun 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 dun. It just like all the feel was gone, and we just did this thing. It felt constructed. I'm still friends with Johnny Cobb. I haven't talked to Mike in a long time. And Johnny's a great guy, man, a great writer. He's a very pop writer, though. It's very pop.
Yeah, and that's what they were looking for. It was
Yes.
Okay, so which was the one you just said? I got Angeline is the one that's on Reach for the Sky. I think that was the hitter. I got a Right to Be Wrong. Those were the two hits. The other one you mentioned is on the following record, Brothers of the Road.
Okay.
And then so I got that. And so to be honest with you, that's sort of what the review said. It was like, you're running out of a formula here. They were good, actually, good reviews of Reach for the Sky. Not good reviews at all for Brothers of the Road. Out of the chute, it was as if the experiment.
Yeah, my mom saved some of them, and like, it's not good,
So you guys, do you remember playing that Gainesville gig that's all over the internet?
Yeah, I do. That was fun.
And do you remember playing Stuart, Florida, my hometown, a week before in a field? It was
Is that where we got our bus driver?
It was a charity gig for a kid who had gotten paralyzed, and it was in a field in Palm City, Florida.
Mm-hmm.
And it was I think it was a week before that gig in Gainesville. That's all over the internet. I mean, you're on the internet more than by far than Barry Oakley and Lamar Williams.
Probably because recording became easier.
Yep. And they recorded that gig.
The technology moved forward,
Yep. What do you remember about the breakup?
Well, when the band broke up, when I was with them, they have several breakups, obviously. But when I was
your breakup.
Yeah. They broke up a lot of times. We were down in Sarasota, Danny and David, myself, the band, and paychecks stopped coming in. The band was in debt. Steve Mazarski was the manager. Band's in debt, spent too much money. Income, outcome, the outflow didn't match up, and so retainer checks stopped. To my knowledge, again, this is more or less hearsay. Everybody wanted to play. Greg got a gig down somewhere in Sarasota. It's one of the clubs or something. And said, "Hey, we can play there, make a little money. Everybody can pay their rent." And we're like, "This is awesome. Let's go down and play and make our rent." Which is great, And Dickey didn't want to do that. He didn't want to play for money in his hometown. He would have rather not done that. I think we went and played, and that, among other things, I'm sure became a fatal sticking point in the band. For that, I got notified the band had broken up, and then Greg put together a little band, with Danny, David, James Fares needs to be mentioned. James Fares played, and I played. Forget who else played. It might have been it. And we went and played a few gigs down in Miami. But when it came back, they went to Chicago to record I'm No Angel album, or whatever that's called.
Mhm.
that album, and Greg didn't want me on the album, so he went with somebody else, and that was it. I was free until the Dickey Betts and Betts Hall Leavell Trucks group popped up.
Best band that never got a record deal.
It was a good band, and meeting Chuck was a joy. He was an interesting guy. I never got to work with Chuck before that. Chuck was a forward-thinking guy. He had a little TR-707 rhythm composer with batteries in it, earphones. He goes, "You ever heard about MIDI? Man, this thing's cool." He'd sit in the van and just sit there and program drum beats all day long. I mean, he was kind of a leading edge dude, you know, really competent, super nice. Just got nothing negative to say about him at all. I mean, not really anybody, but he was just a really sharp guy. Still is a sharp guy.
Yeah.
You know?
I mean, I put this on TikTok the other day. Found a quote he gave about, formerly being in the Allman Brothers. Actually, it was when I was doing research on you, and I
Right.
found a quote from him about, his time, and he had left the Allman Brothers. It was 84. So, Betts Hall Leavell Trucks was done. He was moving on to other things. And it was a really sweet quote about his time there. And my comment is always, he's always an Allman Brother to me. He could be with the Rolling Stones forever. But
Forever.
he's an Allman Brother, to me, like you
He was-
are, and the rest of you guys who are alumni of this band.
Well, like I always say, you can't unplay in the Allman Brothers Band. You can't do it, man.
One of 20 people who recorded and toured with the Allman Brothers Band. David Goldflies, you tell me about your band, because we buried the lead here. We didn't even get to Black Betty, but y'all, he is the bass player on the great
hit single Black Betty. Yes.
Black Betty, and I'm assuming you just got paid scale, if you got paid at all for that gig.
Yeah, we got a little bit of money. I think Bill bought a house from the royalties, but we just got paid to play the gig or whatever. It's fine. I'm glad Bill got a house. He needed it. But yeah, my band is a Brothers Revival. One of the groups I'm working with, and it's my group. I'm a musical director. A Brothers Revival. We do a very authentic recreation of the Allman Brothers. A couple weeks ago, I realized that the recreation is really the band I played with, because I can't really truly recreate the original band. I can't recreate the one that with Alan Woody or with O'Teal, but I can definitely recreate the one that I remember. And I did a lot of research back on the early albums. We do a lot of the early cuts. We're not very good on the late cuts. If we get $1 million gigs and $1 million bucks, we'll go out there and have more rehearsals and do more arranging. Right now, we're doing a lot of the original music. We just added "Don't Keep Me Wondering." Don't Keep Me Wondering. It's a great song, man.
Great song.
And so it's
great bass line.
Oh man, it's badass. We even open the night with it sometime. Just like because I know the album starts differently, but we start with the lick. And you're instantly transported to that world, right? You're instantly in that world. Like, ladies and gentlemen, Brothers Revival, bam, you're in that world. It's like, I like impact, man. I like the show to have impact, and the guys to play at a real high level. If I feel like Dickey taught me, if anybody's walking through it, they get the stink eye. And if they really walk through it, they get fired. Guys don't walk through it much, man. And when they do, they really aren't there. I can't handle it. I learned that from Dickey, man, about being a tough band leader, but wanting only the best out of your players.
People, how do people find you? A Brothers Revival, is it just Google is it A Brothers Revival? Is that how it's...
A Brothers Revival? No apostrophe, I don't think. The apostrophe is always a thing. But yeah, a Brothers Revival. brothersrevival.com, or on Facebook. There's more active of Brothers Revival.